So all of us have those friends who we know are going to be our friends forever. You know, we've known them a long time, and even if we don't see them very often, when we do see them, it's like we've never not seen them. You know, we just pick up where we left off. And that's the kind of friendship I had with my friend Sandra. So it's 1971, I'm 18, and I walk into the door of the student newspaper office at the community college in Pittsburgh. And I focus in on the one guy who's sitting behind the desk. Everybody else is sitting on tables or chairs. And I say, can I join the newspaper staff? And he says, fuck yeah! Yeah, come on in. I'm Joe. I'm the biggest asshole here, and that's why they made me the editor. And this is Sandra, and she's not an asshole, but she's the co-editor because she can actually write. I feel instantly at home here. So I perch on the edge of a table, and right across from me is Sandra. And she's this petite woman with blonde hair and black rimmed glasses, and she's sitting with her arm around this little brown-skinned girl who's about 4 years old. And Sandra looks at me and says, what's your name? And I say, Cathy. And she says, Catherine, welcome. Well, nobody in my whole life has ever called me Catherine, like not even the Dominicans. So I instantly feel special to her. And I come to feel like she is very, very special to me. Now, we're at very different stages in life. I mean, I'm still walking around whining about the fact that I still have my virginity. And she was married at 18 and had had a child, and she was married no less to a black man, which in 1971 was pretty taboo still. And she had a life that was really actually very difficult because she didn't have a lot of support. She needed to, she needed to work in order to have money for herself and her child. But we still became very, very close. We saw the ocean together for the first time and danced naked on the beach. You know, we did all kinds of wild and crazy 1970s stuff like smoke pot and drop acid and all that kind of stuff. And we shared a tremendous, tremendous love of words. And when I got my junior year at Carnegie Mellon, we got an apartment together with Phaedra, her daughter. And we had a great time, and we just had a great time. We became really fabulous friends. We had Halloween parties that became, just legendary. And when I moved to Washington, D.C., we still became, we were still friends, really, really good friends, but we communicated a lot by letter. We became correspondents. And I would sometimes get like 4 letters a month from Sandra. And I would try to write back as much as I could. And this went on for a really long time. We were friends for 44 years. And I wanted to give you a little taste of the way Sandra wrote, because she wrote really beautifully. And she would include like entire poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay and Faulkner and Keats. I mean, she just is so into words in just a really, really beautiful way. And she was also a real supporter of mine, a real booster. Would always tell me what a great writer I was and how far I was going to go and all that good stuff. So this was a letter from May 1983. I love you. You are always with me, and I confide knowing your responses. And I share the joys knowing your laughter. And I share pain because I know your anger and irritation. And I can give some fine part of myself to my life and know that you approve. So 3 weeks ago, I get a call from Phaedra, who is now 44 years old. Actually, I guess she's a little more than 44. And she calls me, which she never does, and she says, Catherine, I have really bad news. My mom died. I said, you mean your grandmother died? No, my mom. I said, how? How could she die? She said, I don't know. She died in her sleep. She always said she wanted to die in her sleep, and she did. Well, how can this be? What did she die of? We don't know. We don't know. And I am like blown away. Because not only have I lost a really good friend, like my oldest friend, like my longest standing friend, but I feel like this is the beginning of a trend that I really don't want to see. Like, I am not ready for my 60-something friends to be dying on me. You know, I'm really not. I've lost my parents, all my aunts and uncles, a nephew. I'm not ready, you know, to lose my friends. So she says, Catherine, would you come to Pittsburgh? Would you speak at Sandra's memorial? And I say, well, of course. So a few days later, I drive to Pittsburgh, and it's this rainy, miserable day the whole way, and I'm by myself because my husband has had to take a flight to Iowa because a cousin of his has died, and he's going to fly in later to Pittsburgh. So I drive actually past Pittsburgh to Ambridge, which is a small town down the Ohio River, a very dead old steel mill town, to this big old funeral home. And who do I see in the parking lot but Joe? And Joe is like, what the fuck? You know, I can't believe this. I just saw her. I just talked to her a few weeks ago. We were going to get together this week for lunch. We were going to have wine. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't know, Joe. Like, really, I don't know. All I know is she died, you know. So we go in together, and I'm like, I know it's going to be behind this door, and I really don't want to do this, you know, but, you know, you got to, right? So I go in, and I know it's going to be Sandra in the casket, and her mother, who has Alzheimer's, you know, confused, and Phaedra and her children and grandchildren, bereft, and that's exactly what it is. But like a lot of viewings, there are also these moments of tremendous gladness. You know, one young woman came up to me and she said, you know, I worked with Sandra, and I would have lunch every day with her in her office, and we would talk about everything. And she really encouraged me to go to graduate school, and I have the career I have because of her. And another young woman comes up and she says, you know, Sandra was so important to me. I went to her for advice one time because I couldn't decide whether or not I wanted to go to China and teach English. And she said to me, you'll never be this young again. You'll never be this free again. Go. And so I went, and it was fabulous. And I thought, well, that's who she was, you know? So the minister gets up, you know, and we're sitting in chairs, and he, you know, delivers this little, I don't know, eulogy about love and friendship and joy and people going on. And I'm looking past him to Sandra lying in the casket, and I'm thinking, you know what? I am never going to see her again. And I'm like devastated. So 2 days later is going to be the memorial. And the memorial is going to be at the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh, which is where she worked. At the age of 55, having finally worked and gotten her degree from Carnegie Mellon, she got this job that she just loved at the Heinz History Center as their volunteer coordinator. And she grew, over 12 years, she grew this volunteer force from 28 people to nearly 600 people. And now they are 600 really devastated and upset people. So the room where the memorial is going to be is just kind of like a little auditorium with chairs and this program with pictures of Sandra on the front or on every chair. And there's a long buffet table with like 14 dozen desserts, you know, that these volunteers have made. And they come in and they sit down, and on this little stage, which is not even as high as this, but there's an empty chair, which is like the chair that Sandra would be in, right? And the head of the museum comes up, the president of the museum, and he talks about Sandra and how, you know, over the last couple days he's found out how many things at the History Museum she was really caught up in. And then one of her volunteers gets up and he decides he's going to use Casey at the bat, you know, as his conceit for talking about Sandra. Mighty Sandra has struck out. And then I get up and I say, I knew I was going to be speaking to a bunch of historians, so I went back to my original source material. And I put this pile of letters on top of the lectern. And these are letters that begin in 1979. And I tell them about her letters, and about how she wrote about her life and her loves, and how hard her life was during the time that she was really destitute, what it was like when Phaedra hit the teenage years and became nutty, and then had a baby at 15, making Sandra a grandmother at 33, you know, and just what it was like to finally get her degree, but then not be able to get a job until she got the job at the History Center. And then I say, who here hired Sandra? And this lady kind of goes like this. And I say, I want you to know, you all saved her life. You saved her life. Because There was not a conversation I had with her, there was not a letter I got from her where she did not say, Catherine, I love my job and I love my volunteers and I am never gonna leave here. But of course she does. So I have my share of desserts and coffee, and then my husband and I say, could we go up and see her office one last time? And a woman takes us up there, and she's got this lovely glass enclosed office, and everything's very neat. You know, everything's on bookshelves, everything on the wall is framed, except for this one wall, which is just covered with postcards from her volunteers' travels. They would always send her postcards, and she had them on the wall, like strung together with ribbon, and their names above each of them. You know, like these were people that she adored. And I think, you know, I am not ever going to let it happen again, what happened really with Sandra and me. Because what I didn't say to all these volunteers was that distance distanced us. At being so far apart for so long, even though we were still friends and when we would get together, it would be great, but her birthday was only 3 weeks ago. And I thought of her on her birthday, but I did not call her on her birthday. I want to read you one more thing. Somehow, I live my life away from you, with you. Somehow, home is a place that happens between two people, as invisible and incomprehensible as any physical distance, as certain as a remembered smile, in silence or in words spoken, echoing from over the years and in words preserved on paper, which proclaim the glory of each union and the hope, the anticipation, the yearning for reunion.